video, we will be replacing the pads and rotors in this 2003 Toyota Camry. To prep this vehicle, I have jacked up the passenger side front tire just enough so it is a little bit off the ground. And I have installed a safety stand on that side to support it. I also have wheel chocks behind the rear tires, and I've set the parking brake. The hubcap just pulls straight off. And we have our 5 lug nuts that we will be removing in a star-shaped pattern. And with a little persuasion, we should be able to remove that wheel. And with that wheel removed, we can clearly see our braking assembly. If we take a little bit closer look, we can see our rotor, which is the large disc that we can see. Surrounding that rotor, we have the caliper. And inside that caliper, we have the brake pads. Taking a look from the back side of that braking assembly, we can see that caliper as well. On our caliper, we have a brake line entering into the caliper. We also have 2 caliper bolts. These 2 bolts are what we need to remove the caliper. And because these bolts have probably been on for a while, I'm going to apply some Amsoil metal protector. This will aid in the removal of these bolts. And these caliper bolts are 14 millimeter. And with those caliper bolts removed, we can work that caliper off of the brake pads. And we want to support that caliper with a bungee cord or a length of wire so that we do not put unnecessary strain on the brake line. And then we should be able to slip those brake pads out. If we take a look on the back side of our brake assembly again, we can see that we have our caliper mounting bracket that still goes around that rotor. The caliper mounting bracket has 2 bolts holding that in. So again, we will be using Amsoil metal protector to aid in the process of removing these bolts. And these are 17 millimeter bolts. And be aware that when you remove the last bolt, this bracket will fall, so make sure you support it. And the goal is to be able to remove our rotor. I'll again apply some Amsoil metal protector. That will hopefully aid in the removal of this. And using a rubber mallet, I'm going to see if I can give it a little persuasion. That one's on there pretty good. We'll try this on the back side as well. Now if we take a look towards the center portion of the hub, we have 2 small threaded bolt locations. To aid in the process of removing this rotor, we can utilize the proper bolt size and apply a little pressure onto the center hub itself, pushing this rotor off. And we'll apply a little Amsoil metal protector to those locations as well. Now these are metric M8 1.25 by 40 millimeter. And I'm going to gently snug each of these bolts, alternating back and forth. And I got them pretty snug, so I'm going to tap that rotor. And it popped off there. On our caliper mounting bracket, we can remove our brake hardware. And using Amsoil brake and parts cleaner and a wire brush, we can clean off the surface where our hardware was sitting. And we can apply a little brake parts lubricant to that area where those metal brake hardware components will sit. And we're then ready for our new hardware. And we're going to want that centered and installed fully. Next, we're going to pull out our caliper pins. And we do have a rubber bushing on one of our caliper pins. The side you took this caliper pin out of, this one needs to go back in that same side. And to help remove some of the old grease, I'll be using a little bit of Amsoil metal protector, which will break it down and allow me to clean this a little bit better, and also help in the process of using a wire brush. And then I'll finish up with just a little bit of Amsoil brake and parts cleaner, just to get any residual grease off. On my caliper, the boots appear to be in good condition still. So I'm going to be adding just a little bit of grease inside each of those boots. And a little bit of grease on that pin with the bushing. And we'll install that second one after greasing that. We're going to kind of push it and rotate it a little bit just to get any air out of it. And we can clean off any excess grease. And at this point, our caliper looks great. Back on our vehicle, we will be cleaning up the hub with Amsoil brake and parts cleaner with a wire brush. And then I like to do a general cleaning of the hub as well as the backing plate with Amsoil brake and parts cleaner. And we will want to clean up both sides of our new rotor with brake and parts cleaner. Prior to installing the rotor, I will apply a little Amsoil heavy duty metal protector. This will form a coating that will help prevent rust and corrosion in the future. And then that new rotor can go on. Installing one lug nut towards the bottom will help that rotor stay in place. Next, we can install our caliper bracket. These bolts need to be tightened to 79 foot-pounds. And with that mounting bracket torqued, we can install our brake pads. Those brake pads should be free to slide. And then we need to reset that caliper piston. Now, taking a look at the back side of the caliper, I want to find my bleed screw. We will be loosening this screw so that when we depress the caliper piston, it pushes the brake fluid through the bleed screw rather than pushing dirty brake fluid back through the system. And to loosen this, we want to take a drill bit of the same diameter as that bleed screw. And we want that to fit nice and snug down in the center of that bleed screw. This is going to help prevent that bleed screw from collapsing. Additionally, I'll be using some Amsoil metal protector. And lastly, we can put an 8mm wrench, the closed end, on the combination wrench and loosen this up. Now, I don't want this to drip all over my new brake pads. So I have a drip pan. I have an old brake pad. And I have a caliper tool. I'm just going to slowly compress that caliper piston, allowing that brake fluid to get caught in the drip pan. And when that piston is fully depressed, I can close my bleed screw and remove that caliper tool. And then prior to installing our caliper, we will apply a little bit of brake parts lubricant to the edge of the piston, as well as the connection point where the caliper meets the brake pads. And then we can install that caliper around our new brake pads. And these will get tightened to 25 foot-pounds. The only additional things that we need to do are bleed the brakes, since we did open the bleed screw, reinstall the wheel hub, and press the brake pedal down a bunch of times so that it firms up. Then we can take it for a test drive.